My mute.
Good. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Pathways to the Dark Writing Project. My name is Kelly Lang Buckley, and I welcome you here today. Pathways to the Dark is sponsored by the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center via Visually Impaired Advancement and Humanities New York. Today's classes are going to be led on memoir and creative nonfiction by the wonderful Michele Kratts and Michele DeLuca. So thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure that as you are joining us today that we follow some proper Zoom protocols, which basically means please introduce yourself when you're speaking, because not everyone is able to see you. And there's people joining us by both Zoom and in person at the Lewiston Library. So thank you for the Lewiston Library for hosting us today. And Michele for a wonderful thing. I'm like opening the doors because the library is officially closed to the public. So we are very special today. And on that note, and make sure when you're done, you say over and out or indicate in some way that you're done speaking. So thank you very much for doing that. This is Kelly saying over and out and handing it over to the Michelles. Thanks, ladies.
Good morning, everyone. We are so happy to be here and start this little journey with all of you. Last week was kind of an introductory class and some other kind of housekeeping business about publishing for the first series that we did. Hello there. Is Geraldine in?
And we have Ridge.
Hello, Geraldine. Where do we have Ridge? Oh, hi, Ridge. We have a nice full house today. And I want to say that Michael, what is your last name again?
Stacy.
Michael, say.
Last name Stacy.
Stacy, of course. Michael Stacy, who typically joins the class on Zoom, has driven all the way from Massachusetts to be here with us today in the Lewiston Library. I'll just show you your classmates here. There's Michael and Susan and Helen and Michele and I, and it's going to be a lovely hour and a half, and we hope you all enjoy it as much as we plan to. So welcome, Michele. You want to begin with some of the ideas we'll be discussing today?
First, I want to thank everyone who sent something ahead of time, and you could always do that. It gives us a little more time to read things over, and I did send the emails. As soon as you send it to me, I'll send it out to our group. So again, you have a little extra time. So thank you for that. Such amazing writing.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just blown away by the writing from this group. Everybody's so different. Everyone has a story to tell, and we're so happy to help you share that. We want to also share, we have a Facebook page. It's Pathways Writers Group. We can send that in an email to, and also remember, we are publishing an anthology of your work, whether it's poetry, creative nonfiction, or any little excerpts, things you want if you are working on memoir, whatever you would like.
Right, a selected piece of your work that you will choose that we will add to the anthology to represent your experience.
And send us a little bio that we could put in the anthology if you would like.
And you can wait on that too, because I don't think we have a super deadline for the anthology. I know the gallery opening is on the 7th of August, and I don't know how much lead time Kelly needs for the book. But if you have a piece of writing now that you think you'd like to submit, that would be wonderful. And if you want to wait and see what comes out of the next couple of weeks, we may, if Kelly comes back, Kelly's at a wedding in Ohio, and she's joining us from her hotel room. So if she has a chance to come back, we'll know when our deadline is for the anthology.
I think it is August 7th.
Well, that's the gallery opening.
Yeah.
I thought the book would be published
too. The book will be ready by then too.
Oh, right. That's right. But when the deadline is to get your stuff into the book before it's printed.
So we're going to start talking about memoir. Oh, we have more people joining us here.
Umane, hello.
Just keep popping in and we'll keep going.
Anne, Stacy, I feel like Romper Room.
No.
And I see Geraldine and Rich.
It's great. We'll try to keep track of everybody here. So we're going to be talking about writing memoir and writing creative nonfiction. So before we start this journey, I wanted to read something that Mary Carr wrote. Now, she's a very popular memoirist, and she starts off with, maybe you shouldn't write a memoir. So it's a little bit humorous, but I thought we could share it with you. So you want to write a memoir, maybe you should not. Don't write a memoir, she says, if you have these qualities. If you're psychologically hectored by the nattering voice of some scold about how wrong this is. If you have a bad memory, give it up. Many people ask me how to recall the past, and I say, if they don't, they're lucky. Get a real job.
Hmm.
If the events you're writing about are less than 7 or 8 years past, you might find it harder than you think. If you're young, you might want to wait. If you're doing it for therapy, go hire someone to talk to. If you want revenge, hire a lawyer. Hello. Don't write about people you hate. If your writing affects a group of people, a class or race, be sure you're ready for any fallout. If you're somebody who never apologizes or changes her mind, you don't have the fluid nature to swig to the deep river of truth when the spirit draws your forked stick. Related to the above, if you can't rewrite, give it up. So you don't have to follow all that, but those are some reasons she gives not to write your memoir.
Now let's give some reasons why we should write a memoir.
Yes, yes. So I don't think any of that will hold us back. But so just a memoir is different from an autobiography because an autobiography we're all familiar with is more of like a chronological retelling of your life. So memoir is more a study of memory, and it's more of a meandering type of thing. It's not set in stone, like and all just factual. It could be focused on one or several periods of your life. And if it's non-fictional, a first-person written account of events and memories from the author's real life. So there's a bunch of different themes of memoir that just reading a lot of the things you're submitting to us, you could see how different a memoir could be. You could do a coming of age memoir, which is stories of your childhood or different periods of your life, your young life. A framed memoir, which is more like an A to B story structured around an event. If any of you have read Wild by Cheryl Strayed, it's similar. Yeah. A thematic memoir. I think a lot of us are interested in that, probably. Focus on themes such as trauma, grief, loss, an unusual life event, overcoming adversity, or you have a unique upbringing, overcoming disability or illness, travels and adventures, making changes in your life, such as divorce, moving, weight loss, career, spiritual awakening, and journey. War, military, motherhood, the list is endless. And I know, just think about the most interesting aspects of your life. You can write about that. There are memoir and essays, which use of the inquisitive essay form, you tell stories from different vantage points. I just read this wonderful one by Maggie O'Farrell called I Am, where she tells the story 17 different times she almost died.
Oh, I would like to read that too.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. But it's like essays. They're just little different pieces of a family memoir, obviously, a romantic memoir of love stories, or a message memoir where you're trying to tell some sort of message, such as like you're an immigrant, the immigrant experience, stuff like that. Speculative memoir, that's kind of an umbrella genre in which the questions of the memoirist book are addressed through speculative elements, which may include ghosts, metaphors, what ifs, imaginative scenarios, and fantasies. Helen would probably like that.
Well, those Helen's experiences aren't fantasies though. They're
Yeah. Some characteristic. Now, all of this that I'm going through real quick here, I'm going to send out to all of you, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want. I'm just, I like to have everything written down. It's how I work. But some characteristics of a good memoir. Think like a fiction writer. You want it to be fun. You want it to move. You want it to show personal growth. As Mary Carr says, zip the reader into your skin. Truth.
nice.
Show that these events really happen. Show. Theme. Select a theme and stick with it. The first person point of view with emotion. The author is the person telling the story. It should be emotional and realistic. Voice. The author is a storyteller and carries the reader forward through language and sentence rhythms. So remember, your voice is what attracts your reader to you, how you put this out. Conflict, of course, you want to have conflict, obstacles, a climax that make your story exciting. Just think, what do other people want to read? And then structure. Really, a memoir could be any sort of structure. It could be an anthology, a short book, a long book, a personal essay, a collection of poetry, a graphic novel memoir, which is really big now. There's some, in fact, the most challenged book in America right now is Genderqueer, which is a graphic novel of gender identity. And it's an amazing book. So creative nonfiction, we're also going to get into in another class, which involves true stories, but well told. Follows a narrative ploy with an inciting moment, rising action, climax. And it's similar to fiction, but it's based in truth. You've all read these. I gave you a whole list of creative nonfiction. So you have your choice if you want to do your stories as a memoir or more as a fictional type piece. Now, immersion journalists are part of this too. They immerse themselves or involve themselves in the lives of people about whom they are writing, often invoking an intense intimacy. Sometimes it's not really your story, but you go and you investigate whatever you're going to be writing about and really immerse yourself into that. The other thing, there are 5 essentials of creative nonfiction. Real life. So, good writing emerges from really personal experiences. Reflection, reflect upon the subject and think of your readers, not just yourself. Research for information. Reading. You have to read well-written works in order to really be a good writer, become an expert. And writing, the artistic and romantic part of the experience that I think we all love, the craft of writing. Sometimes and you'll probably talk about this more in your next class, that magical moment of clarity where it hits us that this is it. So again, we'll talk more about creative writing in week 5. But you'll need characters, narration, dialogue, plot, and the action, setting, imagery, and intimate specific detail to tell your story. So I'll stop there. If you want to add anything to that, or
There's a couple of things I want to add. First of all, one thing people might say to themselves, why would I want to write a memoir? It takes a lot of time, and I'm going to maybe have to explore areas of my life that are challenging. And it reminds me a little bit of when I used to be a hospice volunteer, and I would offer to do legacy videos, and I would go into the home of a person who has been declared terminal, and I would turn my camera on, and I would ask this person about their life. And I would say to them, and they would sometimes they were delighted to see me as someone who would record their story. They were delighted because this is clearly the end of their lives. They know it. And this may be all that remains of who they are, is this video that I create for them. And sometimes I faced reluctance because they were like, oh, you have to put the camera on me. And I said, this project isn't specifically for your children or even your children's children who you may have met already. This is for the children to come, who are your great-grandchildren and their children, who may never know you or your life story unless they see this tape that we're about to make. And we would proceed to have the most joyous experiences. And this was a video autobiography. This was a person being able to share. Good morning. We have 2 new visitors to our class as well. Can I just have your name before I?
Yes, Lindsay.
Lindsay, hi. Caitlin, welcome to both of you. Anyway, where was it? Okay, so these legacy videos is much the way I see these memoirs, which is, I'll go to all the trouble of writing it, and it's really hard, and then no one will read it. What we're going to suggest to you is we can help you put that book onto Amazon for free. And so it's printable at your desire. And this becomes the legacy that you leave to the world, not just to your children, not just to your grandchildren, but the people who come after. It's your opinions, it's your experience. And as I'm sure you all know as writers, that's how we impact the world. That's how we influence the world, where others can see themselves in your story and learn about ways you've handled challenges, feel a bit less alone in the world because your experience may somehow mirror theirs, or at least they can find some bit of themselves in your story. And that kind of shows the readers, whoever reads it eventually, how we're all connected, and makes us less, I don't know, makes the world less combative when the more that we can see that we are similar. And I think the thing that really entertains me as a writer is you can look into writing from centuries ago and still be shocked at how much we all have in common. My son just returned from Italy for his first visit in Europe, and he was astonished that he could look at a building that had been so beautifully crafted centuries ago. And, we think that okay, I'm rambling, but, we think those people were so different from us, and yet they all still love beauty. They all still loved a good story. And again, I believe that our writing, especially if you're bold enough to put it out into the world in some manner, reminds the readers that eventually come to your work that we are all connected in some way. We all have similar experiences, desires for love, desires to have a world at peace, and desires to fulfill ourselves in our lifetime. That's all I have to say about that.
It makes me think of, I do a lot of genealogy research, and we were given these logs from a man who worked a century in the 1800s in a Canadian cemetery as the sexton. And they were his notes for every burial. And he would comment on whatever he'd see happening at the graves. And it's unbelievable to read how even 100 years ago, the death of a child or any sort of death, you think, oh, they lost so many kids back then, they all just dealt with it, went on with their lives. But when you read it, the real words, what he really saw in front of him, it is so heartbreaking and touching. And you realize, like you said, they're just like us.
Yeah.
No matter, people are people. We're all the same, if it's 3,000 years ago or now or into the future. And we all have a story. All of the writing you're all sending is just phenomenal. Again, everything is so diverse. Everyone has a different voice and a different theme they're going for, but it's just wonderful.
And we're not just saying that. Michele and I are both experienced writers. Michele, as you know, is a librarian. I'm a journalist. I've been writing professionally my whole life. And I sat through some of the recordings of the classes with Bob and Nora. And thank you. I know her name as well as my own, but it just lost. I watched them all, and I too was overwhelmed by the quality of the work. And I'm not just saying that. Again, I want you guys to be clear. We are all writers here trying to elevate our game. And so we feel deeply respectful of the work that you guys have presented.
And you're teaching us.
Well,
That's what I
we're all
feel.
teaching each other,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And that's the beauty of writers groups, which is where writers are encouraged to come in almost all the writing books that I read, to just share your thoughts and to share your work. And that's what we hope to do.
And yeah, we hope to give you this opportunity to grow in your writing and to feel good about it, to feel that you have something to say that other people want to hear. And this has been a great group, a lot of interaction, a lot of commenting, and really good comments to help us move forward and to be excited. I think, there's a quote I saw somewhere about being excited. Oh, okay. I'm just going to read this and then we'll go through, we'll see what you all would like to share today. But Ray Bradbury had said this: only this, if you are writing without zest, without gusto, without love, without fun, you are only half a writer. It means you are so busy keeping one eye on the commercial market or one ear peeled for the avant-garde coteries that you are not being yourself. You don't even know yourself. For the first thing a writer should be is excited. He should be a thing of fevers and enthusiasms. Without such vigor, he might as well be out picking peaches or digging ditches. God knows it would be better for his health. And I love that. So be excited.
And if you can't be excited, please know as a writer that this is what you bequeath to the world when you're gone. This is what remains of you, much like those people who I talked with. This is how you make your mark, regardless of if you have a second, one reader or a million.
So did I'm sure everyone, or many people would like to read something today. We received a lot of writings through email. Would anyone, maybe we'll start in this room. Would you like to?
Well, I just sent a small piece that I just did, you know.
Wait, can you hear
I
Susan?
think we're gonna have to ask Susan to come and sit
Yeah,
in
why
my
don't you-
chair.
Are we gonna do the bio? Because I would rather just read my bio.
Sure, whatever you want to read.
Okay, I'll read my bio.
We're
How
gonna
long is
start
your
with
bio?
Susan.
It'll be quick.
No, I don't need you to be quick. I just was curious. Come sit because I wanted to,
Okay.
you could have sat there and read it, or you could sit
Okay.
right here and make sure everyone
Okay.
hears you. You
My-
can be as long as you want. That's the
No,
whole point
no.
of this.
My name is Susan Marie Ann Santa Cruz Colangelo for a time, Mandeville. I've been writing and researching for a memoir, my adult life, all my adult life. As I get older, I continue to lose my peers and realize that time is running out. The first 21 days of 2022, I took a class online entitled, "Your Wish is a Universe's Command." By the end of the 21 days, I completed the chapter titles. I will organize my essays and poetry, I must add. Since then, I am committed to working every day towards my lifetime goal. Some days it may be for only 15 minutes, other days for up to 3 hours. I continue to go through droves of personal writings as well as articles I have saved for research. All my grandparents and most of my great-grandparents emigrated to America from Italy or Sicily in the late 1800s. They all settled in New York State, all but one of my grandparents were the eldest childs born to their parents. My maternal family settled in Brooklyn. My paternal family settled in Eastern Long Island. Both sets of grandparents owned their own businesses. All are buried in New York State. Both my parents were World War II United States Army veterans, infantry and nurse corps. My eldest brother was a conscientious objector in the Vietnam War. Both my parents experienced the loss of family members before I was born. At the age of 6, I began to be aware of the lasting effects of grief as a result of my paternal uncle and his wife passing the same year when they were in their 40s. This led me to the study of various subjects, including grief, dreams, memories, reincarnation, spirituality, and the fine line between life and death. Within a year of the end of World War II, and soon after his 30th birthday, my father was widowed with a newborn infant. 4 years later, he married my mother, who was two months shy of her 30th birthday. Within the next 34 months, they brought 3 more children into the world. I am the middle child and the first daughter. We were step family before it was in vogue. After graduating from high school, I attended college and hold a 4-year degree in general studies with concentration in accounting and psychology. I worked at Aetna Insurance Company Financial Division for 16 years. Additionally, I have certification to teach 16-week peer counseling process. It led me to work in a community missions and as a manager of a clubhouse for adults diagnosed with mental illness. I left that position to stay with my parents for 3 years until they both passed away. I married twice. First at the age of 24, lasted 8 years, and together we had 1 daughter. The second, at the age of 44, we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. I once again became part of a step family as I gained another daughter and 2 sons. I truly believe that every moment I have lived has given me the knowledge and skills to keep me on track the days that came after, my life's purpose, my destiny. 10 beliefs I hold to be true, and these are my chapter titles. I am guided by others that came before me. I hold silent ancient memories in my DNA. I am constantly changing, emerging as is everything and everyone around me. I have been alive many times and have lived with chosen others before. I am here in the physical body to learn lessons and elevate my spiritual soul. Love never dies. There is an angel around every bend and a special one hovering over my right shoulder. Everyone is innately good. Everything happens for a reason. There are gossamer strands connecting unrelated events. There is a collective unconscious that vibrates to the pulse of the planet. What had to have happened in history leading up to this moment when you are hearing this very sentence that I have written is a miracle in itself. P.S. My first and second concert with the Beatles at Shea Stadium in 1965 and 66. So if I was to recap what they just said, I feel like history is really the theme of my memoir.
That is, okay, now let me just
Thank
say, the reason I asked about your bio, and please, there was applause in the room.
Thank
This
you.
is thank you. So sit for a minute. Michelle
Okay.
can come back. What I want to say about this, when you first said bio and you went like this, I was like, that is amazing. That's a really long bio. And I thought it was like, I graduated from.
No.
So what I want to say about what you've just heard, to those of you who are confused at all about how to start your memoir, this is a perfect example, perfect of, so you sit down and you write what you know about yourself, providing that you're stuck. And much the way that you did, you gave us some facts, and I kept thinking like, okay, but let me continue. So your chapter heads are delightful. This is going to make her life so easy. She came up with the 10 tenets of things that she believes with her soul, and she's going to open each chapter and begin to write from there. But secondly, every time you said something like, I don't know, about the deaths of the two people that first affected you, then in my opinion, you go into that sentence, you just literally start with your bio and tell a story about that time. I was 3 years old when it happened. My aunt, so-and-so, I still remember the smell of her perfumes, so you say that kind of industrial sentence, but then for your writing for this first draft, I'm sure know, and as I'm sure you all know that I'm not telling you anything you probably don't know, but this is a super simple way to smooth yourself into your memoir, because these are the most important points of her life. And if there's a story inserted into every fact, inserted after every series of facts. My older brother was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. There is a story there that, because being a conscientious objector, first of all, her brother was speaking from his soul, and you can only imagine what the people around him felt. A conscientious objector, and some people were horrified, some people were
From World War II veterans.
Oh, please.
Oh,
There's
my
a,
goodness.
so if you tell, so you just literally have to insert segments of stories, and your memoir under these chapters is like done.
Well, and I must say that I have been writing and I didn't know how to organize it. And this class just gave me the headings, so I have poems, I have loss, now it's just a matter of, and I like the essays are short because they're really short stories. And what I'm doing is I'm putting what lesson I learned from this story. So with, 2 sentences of what I learned. Thank you for listening.
That was great. We have plenty of time for everyone to read. So that was so entertaining. Who would like to read next?
Maybe we can go from here to there.
Oh, good
go
idea.
back
Okay,
and
we
forth.
were in the room. Now let's go to the Zoom. Don't be shy.
Hi, this is Kelly. Hi, everybody. And actually, Geraldine has asked to read next.
Excellent. You know what? I'm going to open the chat too, so I can see when people have, because I don't have my chat open. There it is. All right, guys, now I do. Okay, good. Geraldine, wonderful.
Okay,
Hi.
can you hear me?
We can. Can everyone hear Geraldine? That's as loud as I can get. If you'd like to move a little closer, go ahead on the campfire. Geraldine, I think we're ready when you are.
Okay, mine is actually a new piece. I haven't submitted. I submitted so much stuff to you guys. It's just called Hey Wilson. I've really been taking off on these garden stories. So again, a 5 o'clock experience. Hey Wilson, he yells from across the street with a thick Pakistani accent. Come, Wilson, my wife has prepared something for you. I am saturated in sweat, and the sound of the pickaxe hitting the compacted soil is getting to be a bit much. I am clearing ground, removing clay and rocks. It is a man-sized job, but there is no man to do it. Clink, 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 slow and steady, I remind myself. I have been out here in this garden, which compels me to work. My name is on this garden, and it is important to me how it looks. So help or not, pain or not, I diligently keep showing up. The sound of grunting from the pain in my shoulder mixes with the rhythm of the pickaxe and lengthens the musical concert going on. The pitch of his voice adds to the song. Hey, Wilson, clink, 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 Hey, Wilson. I try to ignore him until my goal has been reached. He is not going to stop calling my name. My shoulder is now screaming and the pickaxe is now laughing at what a fool I am to be out here in the hot sun and with no hat. He is waving his hands to gain my attention. Another sound has been added to my musical composition. Tap, 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 clink, 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 Hey, Wilson, come, you are working too hard. Come sit with Ozra and I for a while. He has crossed the street and is slowly walking towards me. His cane is supporting him. His steps are slow but deliberate. His wife has told him to come and get me, and he is determined to do just that. I have listened to the pickaxe mocking me, the concern in his voice and the voice of reasoning reminding me that if I do not stop, I will not be able to walk for a few days. My torn disc back has given me several warnings that it does not agree with my shenanigans. He is gently taking the pickaxe out of my hand, speaking to me in that garden, in that gentle voice a father uses when he is reasoning with his out of control child. Wilson, you are working too hard. This work will be here. You must come and sit. My shoulder hears him. My aching back hears him. My eyes see a work not completed and contemplates exactly what can be said to these aching parts to convince them the job needs to be completed. Neither the back or the shoulder wants to hear anything else that I have to say. They are reminiscing with my tongue. The taste of cool mango slices, the spiciness of the meat and vegetables, the aroma of the basmati rice all make the voice of the tongue outweigh anything the eyes have to say. All thoughts about pickaxes, vegetables, and working have ceased. The only thought is how fast I can get to the table. There is a bowl of, I'm sorry, it's out of, my pages are out of,
That's okay. It happens to all of us.
yeah, it should have been, well, it'll sound mixed up, but I slowly surrender the pickaxe to his weathered hand. He puts it away and walks me from the garden across the street where I am met with all kinds of aromas. My shoulder and back are quiet. The watering of my mouth makes a calypso beat. I am filled with anticipation. I have had meals from her hands before, and I am never disappointed. He chats with me about the garden, my family, and other topics I'm not interested in. All I want to do is taste the results of the stirring and chopping and spooning I hear coming from their kitchen. Her English is nowhere near as fluent as his. He has worked in the marketplace while she has perfected their home. After a short while, I can hear her bare feet quietly walk from the kitchen to the living room where I have been invited to sit while he and I chat. As she stands in front of me, extending the spoon to my awaiting lips, the aromas dance all up and in my nose. You like, she says? I am so intoxicated by the combination of flavors and scents, I can barely stay upright in my seat. Come, she says, as she sets the table in the room next to where I am sitting. Come, she says, as she points to the place where I am to sit. All thoughts about pickaxes, vegetables, and working have ceased. The only thought is, how fast can I get to the table? There is a bowl of warm water seasoned with lemon slices for me to cleanse my hand. I make quick progress of this task. I am ready to taste. There's a flat fry bread full of green speckles, a green, very spicy vegetable mash made from the mustard leaves I brought her from the garden the day before. There is what I have come to know as a patty made from the flowers of the squash and zucchini plant. There is green chili paste and a bowl full of mango slices to calm my tongue from the burning of the spices she used. The three of us sit at the table eating and talking. I am eating more than talking. I have not given one thought to pickaxes, watering hoses, or anything else garden related. My shoulder is quiet, my back has joined my stomach in a rhythmic rocking back and forth, signifying that they are both satisfied. Meal now over, I sit a little while longer, then rise from the table to make my way towards the door. I have also come to learn it is an offense to come to a Pakistani house and be in a hurry. They have come to learn that I am a busy person and do not have a lot of sitting around time. He smiles at me saying, okay, Vilson, you don't work too hard at that garden now. She says something in Urdu that I don't understand. He translates, you bring her more mustard leaves. Yes, they are her favorite. And some long beans next time, okay? All I can do is nod. My mouth is trying to maintain the taste still dancing around my taste bud. He carries my tools down the porch stairs and onto my awaiting wheelbarrow. There is no desire to return to working in the garden today. He hands me a small bag with mango slices and leftovers from the meal. I glance toward the garden and continue walking towards home. I am more than satisfied. Was a little mixed up. I'm done.
That's okay. That was very nice. Turning the computer on. I hope I'm not making anybody dizzy. I wanted the people in the room to be able to hear from my computer what you were reading. So that was lovely. I think that's a perfect example of poetry in fiction writing, poetry
Oh,
in
absolutely.
memoir writing, where you have the cadence of the click and the click. And
Mhm.
I also want to say that I sat with that meal. I was there with you. And beautiful descriptions of the food and the personalities, and that garden book is, I see that coming together. He is a separate character from you, obviously. I mean, that's not a version of you, that is him. Like, that's the plan, to put different characters from their perspective.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful work.
And I love, so this is like, you went further with the barrier breakers, with the
Yes.
immigrant story. I absolutely love that whole idea and what you're bringing through here, how the immigrants give as well as take. And I've heard, I don't remember who told me this, but I've done a lot of research on immigrant groups and everything in our community. And someone had told me before that there are two things that finally break the barriers between immigrants and the community that was already there. It's music and food. Yes. And you portray that so perfectly that usually that's what makes the whole community accept them and take them in, because learning about the new food and your whole garden idea, I think it's almost like, yes, there's a garden with these vegetables growing and that are, sustaining people's lives, but the people are also growing in the garden.
And sustaining each other. That's
Yes,
beautiful.
yes. It's just, Geraldine, you are such a prolific writer. You said so many things. I've read all of them, and I just absolutely adore your writing.
Good. Geraldine,
You guys, have to forgive me because I didn't know whether there was a limit, and I write so much, I probably bombarded you.
No,
with-
no. Oh, God,
Oh,
send it.
gosh.
If we have something, if we have something specific to say about the other work you're sending, everyone has access to that work, right? Through the,
Yes,
through
yep.
the
When you
email.
send
So,
it, we're just gonna send it on to everybody.
yes, so we'll all be able to share the stuff that's not being read.
And remember, you can rewrite it. You can, just keep doing that.
Does someone on Zoom or in the room have something else to add to either one of these readers?
I just wanted to say, I thought that was poetic, what she just read. I concur with you. And also, I love that I learned something about this immigrant couple, that not to rush off. That was so, there's other things, but that stands out in my mind. That's from you're learning their culture and they're learning yours.
That is Carol on the phone with us. Carol is an accomplished writer. She's published about 80 pieces of work. I wrote a newspaper story about her children's book, which was a story about her guide dog. What was the name of your book, Carol?
Nadine, my funny and trusty guide dog.
Yes, beautiful. Anyway, anybody else? Thank you, Carol.
I was very drawn in by figurative language.
Okay, go ahead. I don't think everyone needs to see you, but I'm just going to try. So go ahead.
Oh, I was very drawn in by the figurative language, especially the onomatopoeia. It just, every time I kind of slipped back from it, I was drawn right back in because of the language, as well as the cadence of the writing.
Yeah.
That was really beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to all of us to consider a little of that in our own work, the sound of whatever, and the aromas, the smell. And writers, accomplished writers often say, don't tell me, show me, specifically in terms of, say, movie making or playwriting, but it's also true of writing a book or a memoir, which is don't tell me, show me. And
And
that's
read it out
exactly,
loud.
yeah, yes, for sure. So that was lovely. All right, who's next? Oh, unless anybody else has anything to say. We don't want you guys left out of the comment process because it's important.
I'm like, this is Kelly, reporting in from Ohio. I had a comment, if you don't mind. Julian, this is a bit of constructive criticism.
Okay.
I loved a lot of things you were doing. The only thing that I found distracting or moderately confusing momentarily in the entirety of the story is when you were saying, I stopped thinking about the vegetables. That just line, if you can consider changing the word vegetables to work or growing thing or like something other than that, because you're talking about eating vegetables, but then telling me that you're not thinking about vegetables. And then I lost track of one of the thoughts just because my brain went on a tangent on that topic, right? Of like, where I was there at the moment, and because you are still thinking about vegetables, but you're thinking about not the cultivating of vegetables, but the enjoyment of vegetables, right? So you stop thinking about work and you start thinking about product or produce, which might be a better way of.
Sorry.
No, so that's Kelly. I'm done.
Thank you. And we're forgetting to do that too, to say I'm done. But that's an interesting thing, is that you stopped thinking about the vegetables you were trying to grow and you started enjoying the vegetables that you were savoring. And this is scent. And so it becomes more sensual from the hard labor of growing these things. Now you're enjoying, I'm not sure if they're the same vegetables, but vegetables in general. So it is something to consider. It's an interesting, very interesting point, Kelly. Always welcome. Thank you, of course. Geraldine, anything?
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I actually, because I wrote that about 5 o'clock this morning. So
Yeah.
it definitely needs a lot more editing. And when I read that line, I said to myself, I have to have a better way to differentiate what I was saying.
Good.
So thank you.
Good. She's good. All right, who's next? So we were out of the room. No, in the room, anybody? Mike, I'm going to try to get this on you. I'm turning my computer to Mike so that you guys can hear him better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. John, another Marine stationed at the escort detachment at the Philadelphia Naval Base, dared me to run the gate in 1966. The base was a top secret facility repairing naval vessels and a military prison. The main entrance at the Philadelphia Naval Station consisted of 2 guard shacks, one on the right for incoming traffic, the other on the left for outgoing traffic. Every vehicle had to stop for identification check before going through the incoming gate. Overlooking the incoming base gate was the base police station to the right of the incoming guard shack. To the left of the outgoing entrance was the Marine Guard post. Marines in the guard shack checked military personnel for authorization. All civilians had to register with the base police before entering. Plunging the gas pedal down, the Super Sport Chevelle with 400 horsepower engine leaped forward. The speed gauge started to climb. Everything blurred as we sped towards the gate. 10 drinks and some shots will do that. The gate appeared. I am thinking, will I hit the cement gate as we go through the gate and the car explode, killing us? The thought didn't stop me. In a dreamlike state, we entered the front of the incoming gate. Time seemed to stop. I could see the cement as we passed through the gate on my right, inches from the car. I saw the base police glancing down at the car as we moved through the entrance to my right. The Marine on duty backed into the guard shack on top of the cement, an intelligent move on his part. My hunch is he didn't want to die if the car hit the post. We passed through the gate without hitting it. Somebody had to be looking out for me, a divine intervention. I pushed the gas pedal to the floor, the car swayed and gripped the road. The turn to the parking lot came quicker than I thought. I slammed on the brakes and we swerved into the street, moving into the parking area. The car stopped. I sat in my seat, more alive than I had been for quite some time. Every fiber of my body was pulsing. I was in another world. I turned to John and smiled. John, Stacy, you are one crazy son of a bitch. I did not think he would run the gate. He got out of the car and I also did. A Marine from the detachment was crossing the parking lot and stopped before me. Stacy, the base police are looking for you. They came in force, several of them. They were not happy. The lead officer said you ran the gate at a high rate of speed. Go up the back steps to our building to avoid running into them. We were a tight-knit group. All of us were Vietnam vets. I knew I would pay for running the grate. The risk-taking and danger made me feel alive again, if only momentarily. Had I turned into an excitement junkie? At the time, the episode seemed perfectly natural. I had survived much worse in Vietnam. Firefights in Vietnam with bullets whizzing by my right ear in the jungles of Vietnam. I even survived a dangerous episode in a whorehouse. When on Liberty in Da Nang one day, I missed curfew. I was returning to the States after my tour of duty. After visiting several bars, I decided to visit a whorehouse. I had not been with a woman for months, and this was the only option for Marines in a Liberty town. While staying with the prostitute, I fell asleep. When I awoke, it was after Liberty hours. I got up and looked out the window into the pitch dark night. I was in trouble. The gate to the base got locked at dusk. The only option now was to stay overnight with my companion. During the night, around midnight, there was shouting outside the room, then banging on the door, accompanied by a demand to open up the door to her room. Someone was trying to break down the door to her hotel room. The prostitute whispered into my ear, do not open the door. They will kill us. My mind began to race. The banging on the door scared the hell out of me. It got louder and louder. I was sure the door would give way and the Viet Cong would kill us. I had no weapon. The door held, the shouting stopped, and with my heart racing, I slid back into bed with the girl who had saved my life. On another mission, a jet dropped napalm a half a mile from me, with the jungle erupting in flames, hell on earth. Even though the flames were half a mile away, the heat engulfed us, sucking the oxygen out of the jungle where we stood. Those experiences had killed the teenager I was in 1965. Something had died in me and might never be brought back. The sweet young man who entered the Marines had become something hardened. I would never be the same. I would spend the rest of my life in the Marines and beyond trying to resurrect my life. I would pursue feeling alive the rest of my life.
Mm,
Wow,
Wow.
Wow,
wow,
wow.
wow.
Everyone's-
We're all wowed.
I would say that's very powerful, and I like your style. You don't put too much in. I think you put just what you have to, and it makes it go, and just go and go and go like a machine, which is how you're describing. I'm sorry, everything you've been through. My son's, I told you, is a corpsman, and we're serving at the Marines right now, and he's been through a lot. He suffers from some PTSD situation. So I almost feel very emotional reading this, because the transition from a young person, even from, I don't want to say the word normal, but when you're in these situations, these war situations, you have to survive, you have to become a part of that machine. And how you describe in this piece, I'm interested in all your other pieces too. I know we've read one or two before, but you cling to life, and that PTSD feeling is you're always on edge. You're always fight or flight.
You never get over it.
No.
Never get over it.
And-
I thought I did.
Mm,
Apparently I didn't because I'm going for counseling.
Good for you. Good for you.
Because you're normal human, it's hard to deal with what you've had to deal with.
Yeah, I got
When
emotional
you're-
reading it. That's surprising. I've never felt that.
Can you hear Mike?
And yet you managed to have some humor in there, which, I mean, it's a little dark, if you don't mind me saying, but that caught me, that you were able, that was very good, the way you handled that. I would just like to see, there was a tiny transition possibly needed between the episode with the prostitute and your last, you had a transition, but you needed a little bit tighter there. And then going into that last paragraph. But I thought because it's hard for me to hear some of this stuff. I've only read a few military things, but this is a good one. This is a good one. I read The Things They Left Behind, for example. And Tim somebody, I don't know, about Vietnam, because I happened to be around during that time too. But this was very good. Thank you for reading.
That's Carol on the phone. Anybody else have something they'd like to add?
We have
I
one
do.
comment. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, of
Can-
course.
am I interrupting?
Not at all. No,
Not at
it's
all.
kind of hard with people in and out, and we are a little freewheeling, but please talk.
Yeah, this is typically why we use hand raising anyway in Zoom.
Yes.
But
Yes.
anyway, this is Christopher Savins from Cincinnati. My dad was in Vietnam, was actually in Naval Construction Battalion, MCB 11, and he was in Da Nang. He was actually in part of the Tat Offensive 68. Same thing. And what I really enjoyed about this is the fact that you're not only, he talks about back then, some of the experiences that he's had, and you're not only trying to stay alive, but also trying to create experiences where you feel alive. And I think that that's especially when you tried to run the gate and some of your other experiences with the prostitute. And I'll tell you, my dad is also dealing with a lot of PTSD, some cognitive issues, and quite a few health issues. We're trying to get on permanent, and we're trying to apply for permanent and total disability for the VA, which is a process in and of itself, which I don't have anything to present, unfortunately, this week, but I'm actually going to write a story, working on a story for next week, which covers some of that relates to an experience that occurred this week, in fact, here in our area in Cincinnati. But I just wanted to comment on that. My dad was also discharged at the Philly Naval Shipyard in 71. So Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I really like the story, but I also like the way it was portrayed, in particular, as far as the just the whole idea of staying alive and innocence lost. So appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
I would like to say, Mike, thank you. Thank you, Christopher. Anybody else who's talking?
This is Geraldine. I'm getting lost in this mute and unmute thing. Michael, I look forward to hearing your stories. I wrote a whole list of things. Excellent word description. You drew me into the story with your words. It was like using a pen to paint a picture, and it was beautifully painted. It gave us, once again, a little bit more into what kind of person you are, your personality. Your description of the other characters were really good in their relationship with you without taking the focus off of the main character. I really respect how you mixed. There was a mix of humor and seriousness. We were able to, I was kind of able to kind of walk in and live your pain, but it wasn't so painful that I was distracted, because at the moment where I felt, where I could kind of be kind of, I lose words sometimes, where I could kind of companion with you with your pain, there was some humor, which kind of broke it up. And it allowed me to be able to hear what it is that you were saying. So much suspense that I was left waiting for the next word. You always, your pieces always leave me hungry. It's like, oh, don't leave me there. You got to tell me something else. You got to tell me something else. And I think that for me is an indication of a successful writer, when you whet somebody's appetite just enough to want more. And I'm always left wanting more of what you have to say. So I'm done.
Mike, is this a part of a continuing book that you're
Yes,
doing? So this is a chapter.
This is the first piece.
First piece.
Leading into leaving the Marine Corps.
Excellent.
The next piece is actually leaving the Marine Corps.
Can I make a suggestion as a writer? And I'd be interested to hear if someone has anything to add about that, just because I'm thinking if I were writing this, because I'm used to, as I've said before, I'm a journalist, so I have to put all the good stuff at the top, or they'll read the first paragraph and turn the page or go to the next story. So I really have to, if I want their attention, I have to. And I was just thinking, you could consider like an Uber sentence, like the day that I was signing my resignation papers or my draft papers, I couldn't help but remember all the incidences that, so take us specifically like a movie camera onto an incident that kind of explains all of this, so that we know what to, so that we really can dig in and go, oh, he's going to tell us this very last sentence is killer. I would pursue trying to feel alive for the rest of my life, or that I would never be this. Even as you're signing the papers, you're recalling how you will never be the same. That your life as you've known is the day that I signed, I was sitting in the commander's office, my pen to paper, and I realized that I would never be the boy that entered the Marines. Something like that. And I'm not sure, because I really like the way it opened as well. You literally, as I like to say, grabbed us by the throat and dragged us into the incident. Perhaps then just starting with revving the engine at the very beginning, driving into what could be the end of your life, or something really more dramatic. But that's just me as a writer, so I can't say for sure. That's just me as from my experiences. Anybody offended by what I just said? In just out of curiosity.
This is Geraldine again. I'm sorry. I agree with you. I would like to, because this is a topic that is so important, and you are able to use your pen to represent those whose pain or experiences are so pushed down that they don't know how to bring those experiences out. One of the things that I would like to see, and it was a beautiful piece as always, I would like to see more of the emotion, of more how you felt. It will challenge you, even as I have been writing some things. It's been challenging me because it's made me go inside and be able to number one, discover that my pain has not stopped. I've just pushed it down. And so now if you would dare to bring the things that you've pushed down up and out, I think that that will be my one suggestion. But I also I struggle because I also liked it as it is too. So I'm done.
This is Froggy. I get what you all are saying to Mike, but I think a big part of what you're missing is that 99.9% of those that have gone through active duty war experience never, ever, ever mutter a word about any of it. They bury it deep.
Yeah.
They keep it there safe because that's what they need to do to function. So any part that he is sharing and willing to share is extraordinary as far as I'm concerned. Check.
Thank you, Frog. I want to agree with you 10,000%. I also want to make sure that people have a sense, if Mike chooses to write it this way, my suggestion, I don't want to lose a reader because they go, I'm not interested in cars driving, you know. So something that really, and this is a very grabbing paragraph, but I do think what you just said is vital. It's why Mike needs to write this story. It's why Mike needs to get these feelings out there so that others can find themselves in his work. And so that was not what I said, a criticism by any means. That was a suggestion to make sure we don't lose any readers who go like, I'm not clear.
I didn't take it.
Good, but Froggy wants to be really clear on how we all deeply admire and respect what you're doing, because I have a dear friend, the godfather to my child, who's never mentioned a word. He got a Purple Heart in Vietnam, never speaks of what occurred there. So believe me, I know how, I mean, none of us know what you experienced, but there's evidence that if you write this, that it's very, very important to so many.
This is Kelly. We have another speaker. Jason has something to say to Mike Stacy.
Hello, Mr. Stacy. I really appreciate you sharing your story. Listening to you tell the story, the writing it's raw, it's fresh, it's coming straight forward. They were talking earlier about how writers are often taught to show, don't tell. But there was something about your telling of the story that was so matter of fact, so straightforward, that it was profound in and of itself. It became part of the story just the way you were telling it. I was really impressed, intrigued. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. I certainly understand what everyone else is saying about different ways to rearrange and change things up, but I really appreciated your telling. And so thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Susan's been trying to say something as well. Are you good? Everything was said, yes. Keep in mind, I always seek critiques for my work, and then I decide for myself what in my heart I know to be my truth. So this is why we gather. We go, well, you could try it this way. Well, you might make it stronger, or you might, like it exactly the way it is. You might feel like I do agree that you write like a man with a military background. It's sharp, it's concise, and honestly, I just care that you continue to write about it. I think that's very healing for not just you, but military all around the world. So that's my opinion.
I guess one of the things that I want is, suggestions on the writing. And so I didn't take that poorly at all. In fact, I took it as a positive.
Good.
I don't think I can become a better writer, if I don't listen to readers, people reading, the work and how the plus and the what works and what doesn't. In fact, when I get done with the memoir, I'm 3/4 of the way done with it now. I want to give second readers, and I want the second readers to take a look at it, and then look for feedback on how the second readers have how that's impacted them, what they like, what they want more of, what they want less of, what moved it forward, when did they put it down and go to the TV. you know, that kind of thing, because I think it's important. I see this from my point of view. I don't see it from the reader's point of view. So it's important for me to get that feedback, like the feedback you gave me. So I didn't see, I
Excellent.
saw it as a positive.
Good. Please believe me that, again, I always seek advice, and yet it's really important to stick with your own truth. And yet, the other thing I wanted to say is I've already offered to be a beta reader, and we have a whole class full of beta readers who I'm sure would be delighted to read that. And we have this Facebook page now, so you can reach out to us and say, hey, I've finished my novel. Who wants to be a beta reader? And we can all enjoy it a second time and have input. So that's wonderful.
I just want to add Michelle's advice as a longtime journalist, I think is great, because you're used to writing very short pieces that grab you at the beginning. And that's reminding me as a writer too, that no matter what you're writing, that is really important. You know, it's not wordiness, it's getting right to the point, because people don't have time. People don't want to be bothered. So that's great advice, I think, for everything we write, is remember though, that first group of words, that first pull in is so, so important. And look at our writing as journalistic, you know, that you have a lot of experience with that, and you know.
Thank
that's
you. Well,
important.
I always think about the person reading my story and going, eh, and turning the page and I'm going, wait, you didn't hear about this. So that's just me. Hello, Stacy. Did you just pop in? Hello. All right.
Hi, I just wanted to talk about Mike's piece. I thought it was very courageous, and I'm a big fan of him anyway, so I always like everything he does, and just the way he speaks alone is like a huge thing. But one of the things that really piqued my interest in his writing was when he stated about being with the prostitute. And I thought that was a very courageous thing to say. And there's so much more that, like, questions that I would like to see answered. So I think he could elaborate on that whole section more, because I want to know, like, were there any like inner turmoil feelings involved with that? Was there any guilt afterward? More about, I mean, it's up to him how much in detail he wants to share, but that was the thing that when I was listening to, I was like, wait, what? I want to know more about that, because and what's involved in that, and why, like he said, he hadn't been with a woman in years, and how, or in a long time, not years, but a long time. And I know this, I've heard that this is like a typical thing, but like, I want to know more about it. Like how do people get in that situation, that, you know, what they're feeling, what his emotions were, what he's going through, how he felt afterward. I mean, if he wanted to, that's all. That as a reader, I was like, oh, tell me more about that, you know.
Stacy's right, Mike. Thank you, Stacy. And
If I can make a comment, this is Christopher again. If I could make a comment, I think some of those experiences, like the prostitute, and also that whole sort of humor thing, is really part of being in the military. I mean, I can just see. I mean, I've read military books, but I could just see my dad, you know, talking about experiences like that. And oh, you are one crazy son of a bitch.
yeah.
And it's like your adrenaline is so piped. I could just imagine, you know, your adrenaline is so piped up to the absolute max, and add alcohol, and there were other drug issues going on in Vietnam, probably not at that time in 66, but certainly my dad's time in Vietnam was 68, 69. There was a lot of stuff going on. And a lot of what you describe is really, I think, part of the culture. So I don't know if it's really, I don't think it's as necessary to elaborate necessarily, you know, just because, you know, you talk to any veteran, you go to any VA, and you're going to find stories that are similar.
Yes.
Any support group.
Thank you. Are you finished?
That's all.
This is
Over.
This is Froggy.
Hi.
Going back to the prostitute, the whore. I don't know about the rest of you, but like if I have company, even if it's family that I know sleeping at my house, I have one ear open all night long, so I'm not getting a good rest. Mike, how in the world did you fall asleep in a brothel next to somebody that you don't know with Viet Cong banging on the door and knowing that you have missed curfew? Yeah, and the Kong are banging on the door, and I got back into bed because she told me just to go to sleep. Hello.
Alcohol. She said that. That's a good
Check.
point. Sure. I do want to say, I too was a little intrigued, even from the hardness of that place of just, even that's interesting if you expound on that. I really don't, I still don't remember what she looked like, or, your feeling of her. If you could bring her a little bit more alive, because she did save your life, you may not even remember what she looked like. And that's just as important as if she was kind and beautiful, but just more of that. Okay.
But I think all these comments, everyone wants to know more, then you did a good job.
Yes.
This is, I know, just one piece of the whole work.
Yeah, but
So-
it's an important piece, so I appreciate, the feedback.
it is.
On things people want to hear more of, or changes that they want to see. Because I think, because it's the first piece, it's probably the most important piece in the entire memoir. Maybe not for impact, but to get the reader hooked, to get the reader interested. And like you're saying, if people were interested and they want more, then like you're saying.
You're
did a
on
good
it.
job.
You're on it.
that's what you want to do.
Okay, so where are we, Michelle?
Does anyone else want to read?
Yeah, that's the.
Okay, Zoom members, anybody else want to read? I saw almost a hand in the room. Okay, I'm going to turn to you so people can hear you. Wait, did that work when you came and sat next to us? Come sit. Can you read? Can you bring it? That probably worked well.
It's a few pages long, so should I just read a section?
Well, it's got big spaces, but what time is it now? Because we do want to.
I know you have to.
I have to walk out at 1 o'clock. I have other commitments.
Do what you have to do.
Yes, oh God, no, please do. That's casual. As long as we need to try to remember to say over. I think that's one thing we should all work on a little bit. Or finish speaking. Go ahead. Now, what is your name?
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Guys, this is Caitlin, and she's going to read.
Just a little backstory. My writing has a theme of healing, and I write hand first because it's a form of bilateral stimulation that helps with memory processing. And I chose the prompt on grief. My grandfather was the lighthouse in a stormy family. I never understood how my mother, consumed with childlike rage and resentment, came from such a kind, humorous, and generous man. Although he was not my confidant, no one filled that role in my life at that time. He bolstered my spirits and served as a powerful reprieve from a household where I felt neither love nor acceptance. I looked forward to nothing more than visiting my grandfather. My parents were 44 when they adopted me. As a result, my grandparents were much older than the grandparents of other kids my age. The same is now true for my own children. My grandmother became bedridden when I was very young, and almost all of my memories of her take place in her smoky bedroom. She was moved to a nursing home when I was 10 or 11, and my grandfather, now in his 80s, could no longer care for her. When she died in the spring of 2002, she made a sad figure who could no longer distinguish between her son-in-law, a very large man standing 6'2" and weighing upwards of 250 pounds, and her own husband of over 50 years, a much smaller man of average height and build. She died alone with bones sticking out of her legs and bed sores marring her rumpled, papery skin. Although this was depressing, I had never known my grandmother as anything other than a confused, chain-smoking invalid whom I found to be slightly scary and repulsive. Naturally, my mother felt the loss much more than I did, and her grief at this time was the most genuine emotion I have ever seen from her, aside from the profound grief we all felt at the loss of my grandfather. Throughout my life, my grandfather suffered from large, pervasive kidney stones. He used to track how many glasses of water he drank with little tallies on his calendar. Sometime in my middle teenage years, he had a major myocardial infarction and it required triple bypass surgery, a procedure that is far more routine than it sounds. Hundreds of thousands of bypass surgeries are performed each year, accounting for over 1% of all hospital stays. As with any major surgery, bypass surgery comes with a risk of numerous complications, from inflammation and edema to acute renal failure and stroke caused by hyperperfusion or embolism. My grandfather suffered from both inflammation and edema for the rest of his life, preventing him from taking his 2-mile walks he had been accustomed to taking each morning, even in the rain. On top of this, unbeknownst to the hospital staff, my grandfather was sent home with hospital-acquired methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA. MRSA is a highly dangerous and sometimes deadly antibiotic-resistant bacterial infection characterized by swelling, pus, and heat in the affected area. Invasive MRSA can enter the bloodstream and infect organs, including the heart, sometimes overwhelming the immune system and causing death. My grandfather had a serious invasive MRSA infection, developed pneumonia as a result, and nearly died. He was taken to the local hospital, an establishment lacking in both doctors and reputation, where he was given aggressive antibiotics, which saved his life. Recovery from both bypass surgery and MRSA can be long and arduous. With all his complications, my grandfather struggled to care for himself independently. Hence, for weeks, instead of going home after school, I was forced to spend my evenings at my grandfather's house 15 miles away. Although my grandfather's house had always been a safe haven where I had access to cable television, unconditional love, and junk food, it now felt like a prison. I had been forced into extremely tight quarters with my extremely stressed, highly anxious, and snappish parents, in addition to my cruel and moody teenage brother. I began to grow resentful of my grandfather, angry at my parents for not allowing me to stay home, and disappointed in myself for not being more compassionate. Luckily, after a few weeks, my grandfather was well enough to manage on his own again, though he continued to battle complications, and our weekly visits, once more a refuge, resumed. Unbeknownst to me, a seed of begrudging obligation had been planted, and it grew in time with the cancer that eventually claimed my grandfather's life. By the time I graduated from high school, I wanted to be as far away from my family as possible. In my late adolescence, my grandfather became an anchor, tethering me to my mother and holding me back from the total freedom I required to heal from years of emotional neglect and abuse. The resentment I had felt at 15 resurfaced. I wanted to spend time with my grandfather without coming into close proximity with my mother. This was nigh impossible, as my mother and grandfather spoke daily, and my mother went to my grandfather's house often. At times, visiting my warm-hearted grandfather was painful to me because he couldn't understand the pained relationship with my mother. I know I have some word variety needed. Inherently positive, he believed my mother loved me deeply and fulfilled all my needs. Because I couldn't seem to disentangle one person from the other, I became distant and pulled away from my grandfather. Shortly after the completion of my second year of college, I learned that my grandfather had cancer, and my parents had hidden it from me for months, possibly longer. Even after I learned that my grandfather was ill, they remained tight-lipped, refraining from sharing what type of cancer was killing him, though, judging by the lesions and bruises covering his body, I assume he had skin cancer. Now I faced a new dilemma. I felt compelled to spend every possible moment with my grandfather, but I couldn't bear to be around my mother. I wanted total distance from my family, but I couldn't have it when my grandfather's health kept calling me home. An unspoken wish circled my thoughts, a wish that my grandfather would die, so I would no longer have to grapple with feelings of guilt, obligation, helplessness, resentment, and inadequacy. Of course, I did not actually want my grandfather dead. This was simply a narrative I told myself, or a story I told myself as part of a healing narrative that I believed would release me from an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Nonetheless, I've never forgiven myself for these treacherous, selfish thoughts. Mere weeks later, my grandfather's health took a turn for the worse. My family was advised to place him in hospice care, where his doctors expected him to live another 3 months. At this news, I experienced a dichotomy of feelings. I was at once incredibly sad and also almost energized. I didn't want to lose my grandfather, but now I had a definitive timeline, which allowed me to form a plan. With school being out, and I had only a part-time job to occupy my time, I had the flexibility to spend as much time with my grandfather as I liked. I intended to make up for the last 2 years of neglect by visiting him 3 times a week. I imagined breaking out all the games we played together during my childhood: rummy, slapjack, dominoes, and tiddlywinks. I had a repertoire of songs prepared that I would use to serenade him on the grand piano at the hospital facility. We would have meaningful conversations, and perhaps it could even cajole him into talking about his experiences as an infantryman in World War II. Less than 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in front of a piano at my grandfather's funeral. The night my grandfather died, hospice called my mother to let her know my grandfather wouldn't be with us much longer. Frantic, I rushed from my apartment across the county to my parents' house. We planned to drive from there to the hospice facility 45 minutes away. Shortly after I arrived in the very early hours of Independence Day 2010, my mother received another phone call. My grandpa was already gone. I don't think I can read it anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have to finish.
Thank you.
You know what? The interesting thing about that is this is another reason that we write, which is to examine and release these kinds of emotions. It's beautifully done. And why don't we return to this from this place next week or the week after, when you are ready to explore it some more. You've touched us all like to undeniable degrees with this truth of yours.
Thank you.
So thank you.
This is Froggy.
Froggy.
This is Froggy.
Hi, Froggy.
I'm sorry, I don't know the reader's name. What was her name?
Caitlin.
Who was just reading?
Caitlin.
Caitlin, I want you to take this to heart, what I'm going to say. You were a child, young adult, dealing with grief that you had never had to deal with before, a sense of loss that you had never had to deal with before. You had other family issues going on. Please do not feel guilt. Your grandfather knew that you loved him. You were there and you were present in his life and in his death process. And I want you to take a peaceful transition towards that. And please, please don't feel guilty, child. You did nothing wrong and were extraordinary granddaughter to him. Froggy out.
Thank you, Froggy. I think that's, Susan has a response. Go ahead.
Caitlin, if you can look at me, I just want to say.
I do also.
Okay.
just one thing to you. First, I want to tell you to breathe. Just breathe.
Susan, we could all benefit by what you're telling Caitlin.
We can't hear her.
Could you
I'm
speak up
saying
or come over?
If she can look at me and just breathe.
Yeah.
Writing was magnificent. So I want to say your writing was magnificent, and every person in this room has had grief. And I want to say that what you just shared was so brave,
Yes.
so brave and poignant, that I want to thank you, because the tears that filled my eyes are tears that we share, you know, and I think that everybody here that heard and watched you and saw your pain, that when somebody would read that piece, I always tell my husband, if I can get them to cry, then I know that I've shared from the heart. And really, what more do we really have but our hearts, really? I mean, we come into the world alone, we go out alone. What happens between the only organ in your body that can live outside of a table for less than 5 minutes is your heart. And if you can touch people's heart, we're all going to feel guilt. We'll all have regrets. There's not a person alive who doesn't have them. And unfortunately, but I want to say your writing was brilliant, brilliant. And just keep breathing your way through it. You know, people can do miraculous, people can pick up cars just from learning to breathe. So thank you for sharing. And I do have tears in my eyes from for you and for my own heart, my own grief. And I thank you for sharing that and being brave. You're so brave.
Caitlin, I'd like to thank you for sharing that, because you affected me terribly, because I'm going through something similar to you. Thank you. And don't feel grief. Be happy that you were with him.
I'd like to say one thing to that as well. I don't think you ever need to add this to your story. We haven't heard the end of it, and we hope to in the next couple of weeks. At some point, I would love it if you would write a letter to your younger self, or to yourself, from as if you were your own child, and tell yourself what really happened there. Was that those are all self-defense mechanisms that you put up to protect your heart, but that I think that your grandfather never questioned your love for him. And if you really wanted the pain to end from the gathering with your family, that he would understand. I know you said that he didn't understand it while he was alive, but I'm pretty sure from his perspective, if some of the things we've heard are true, that he understands it now and appreciates the love and loyalty. Should we, now my opinion, because I'm going to let you. Yes.
Oh, sorry. Am I speaking over you? I'm not trying to.
Yes, sir. You know, it's Zoom. It's, you know, if we start a free for all, it's perfectly okay. But I think that our leaders would like us to remember to try and end our sentences with, okay, I'm done. Go ahead, Geraldine.
Caitlin, this is Geraldine. And I think that one of the reasons why, and I can only go for who it is that I believe in. I know for me with my pen, I believe that God gave me that pen so that I can embrace my moments. So I would actually like to kind of come to you from a different perspective. Feel your guilt, feel your grief, feel your anger, feel whatever feeling you have to feel, and realize that there is power in your pen. And your pen has the power to not only heal your reader, but it should first heal you. And in order to be healed, you have to acknowledge your moments. So don't despise, or don't discard, or don't minimize each moment that you feel. Feel what you need to feel, and then rest on that pen to write what you feel, because then it will give more validity to the person that's reading it. I don't really want to hear about grief from a person who has not deeply grieved. You know, there's a lot of feelings that you have expressed in this piece. I wrote the word brave in very large letters. What a brave person it is to get up and be real. I mean, you were real, you told the truth. And so don't minimize your truth. Don't be ashamed of your truth. Speak your truth, because there is a reason why that truth is coming up. Let it heal you. And then, you know, let it take you where it needs to go. I don't know if that made sense. I'm Geraldine, and I'm done. Sorry. I felt it.
This is Froggy again. Geraldine, I guess what I was trying, she had said that she had learned from her family the punishments, and it sounded to me as if her family was very good at putting upon her their feelings, and I just didn't want her to take away her mother's grief and the pilings of the family's grief for their neglect and their guilt when she, as a young person, has her own things to deal with. You don't need to carry the sins of your family. Lord knows that my mother's funeral was the worst ever. But I refuse to carry what the family tried to put upon me. That's their problem. That's not mine. And I just don't want her. It's hard enough to overcome your own grief without having to overcome the grief of others that have been put upon your shoulders so that they feel better. Froggy Chuck.
Thank you. Thank you, both of you. This is why writers gather, so that we can teach each other. What you guys have said in response to Caitlin's piece is very beautiful. I think we all agree she needs to explore these feelings, and that's the value of this work, and the fact that we all got something from that, again, which is why writers gather, so we can teach each other. Do you have something you want to say to wrap? Because I wish we could hear everybody who planned to read today. As you guys can see, if we're going to really engage, we have to kind of let this flow happen. So I'm going to say over and pass it to Michele and hear your thoughts about what we should
I'm just
do.
going to make one comment about your beautiful reading. Grief is such a powerful emotion and such a powerful part of all of our lives. We all experience it. And I think as writers, it's the number one thing that comes out when we're doing this. It's just, and you did a fantastic job. I mean, to what I got out of that is you're a loving granddaughter. That you have so much emotion and love for your grandfather. I thank you for sharing that. And everyone, I thank everyone for coming today and joining us. I think everyone has so much to say. It's wonderful. So keep sending. And
Don't be afraid to post on Facebook too. Like, put your stories on Facebook. We all want to see all of each other's
and our
work.
Facebook is Pathways Writers Group.
So post on Facebook, because you'll get a more, and then we can click on the more and read the rest of your story.
Keep commenting.
Or the email. I still haven't locked onto the email yet. And if any of you haven't either.
Michelle's Rich had posted earlier in the chat that he really wanted to read something. Can we take a moment to let him?
Well, of course.
I can't wait till next week.
No. I think if you posted, you want to read, and thank you for that. That's why we're here. Please read.
Oh, this is
Ridge. Are you here, Ridge?
Oh, I think he's muted.
Oh, Ridge, are you muted? He wasn't muted because we just heard him. Let me see if I can find Ridge.
It
Oh, there
looks
you
like
go.
he's
Ridge, you're
muted.
muted. You have to unmute yourself at the bottom of the screen.
There we go.
There you are. Let's.
Let's try it one more time. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, this is a story about my grandmother. And I know how Caitlin fears because that's happened to me. I cried because I lost a family member. And hold on. Can't see all of it. Come on. Okay, there we go. And a best friend. She was the best grandma I had. She always take me out to school, but most of all that she does is take me camping with her. Once she took me to Hawaii with her, she took me to the zoo, and then we went out to eat for lunch. And we came home to play a game about animals. She was a nice grandma that I could have before she had cancer. She lived in Honolulu. Her name is Helen. Come on, go down. She lives in Honolulu. Her name is Helen. Helen was a nice person. She was a good person, like everyone would like to have one. And I'm done.
Wow.
That's lovely. Stacy, something? Go. Please talk. We're over.
Oh, I just want to say that I could tell how much he loved his grandmother, and I thought it was great how he shared all the things that she did and how everybody liked her, and everybody should have a grandmother like that. One thing he can do to add to that is use some more descriptive language about how she looked, as far as and what her hands were like, because these are just questions I'm asking myself as I'm listening to the piece. Is I want to know more about his grandmother, what her hands felt like, how she smelled, if she cooked him anything. Those are things, because he has a good foundation, and I think he can just keep adding to that foundation more about the grandmother. But he has a very good piece, and just we want to hear more, and that's all. And that's all I want to say about that. And as for the last piece, what I wanted to say is sometimes I hear a reading and it brings something to mind. And her piece brought to mind, which I haven't heard in a long time, the song by Jewel, I'm Sensitive. So if she wants to look that up, the Jewel song, I'm Sensitive. And that just came to mind when I heard her piece. But this piece is a very good foundation. I want to know more about the grandmother, and I hope he adds to it. And that's all. I'm out.
Thank you, Stacy. That's perfectly said. I think we all think that is exactly like Susan's bio, where she said, this happened, and we all went, ooh, that's cool. This happened. But that's exactly how we get further into our stories. For every sentence you wrote to us, Ridge, a little more details, the hands, the look, the smell. And I think you're on your way, and we'd love to know more.
I think that's Geraldine.
Oh, Geraldine.
No, I was just gonna say, I agree. He whet my appetite. He whet our appetite just enough to want to know more. The fact that your grandmother took you so many different places is kind of like little teasers and it's directions that you can go in. What did you see in those places? How did you feel? You know, there's a whole lot that you can add to it, but I think it was very beautifully done. A real good way of expressing grief, but also giving us like some facts also. So very good job. I'm done.
Did you have your hand up? Oh, I thought you did. Okay. I agree. I think I would like to know more about your grandma. Helen was her name, right?
Yes.
And the places you went with her. I agree with everyone. Be more descriptive, and you could carry that forward.
Tell us more. That's actually
Yeah.
what the words you should keep in your head. Tell us more. Yeah, tell us more.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ridge. Any other comments before we wrap? Again, as you can see, we're not going to be able to all have a chance to read, but we're going to carry on, and those who have read today, maybe we'll let people who haven't read read next Saturday. Does that sound
Sounds good.
good?
Yep.
And or not. If you don't feel like reading, it's not like we say we have to hear what you're reading, but I would love, we would both love, we would all love if you share via the emails and the Facebook page. That would be delightful.
This is Geraldine. I do have a question about submission. It was suggested that I submit a piece to the Buffalo Evening News, but I noticed that they asked for your social security number. And I wanted to know if that's something that's normal. I'm a little leery of just putting my social security number. They ask for your social security number on each piece. And so that I've not sent that in. Is
That's
that
interesting.
You know, Stacey Adams just had a piece published in the Buffalo News. She's not here today, but we can ask her.
I actually,
okay?
I had a piece as well. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt,
go
but
ahead.
people who are getting ready to leave, I wanted to make sure. I had a piece published in My View, and they did not ask for my opinion, so they may want to pay you. Kelly, thoughts?
Don't give anyone your social security number until you know who they are. So that's just my general rule of thumb. If they're looking for your social security number, things like that, they shouldn't be looking for that until they're looking for a W-9. And that's for payment. You have to submit a W-9. So if they're just looking for this information on a website or other information, please feel free to send the link to myself or Michelle to take a look at it for you, but or actually talk to a living person. That would be my personal advice on the topic. I am not a lawyer or anything else, but yeah, that seems sketchy. So
I didn't
It
feel
sounded, this is Carol. I've done a number of pieces for My View. They used to pay years ago. They do not pay now. My writers group members are still getting published in there, and they're okay with not getting paid. No, I'm leery of somebody asking for a social security number, unless they've told you you're going to be, you would get an email from that editor saying, but there's no payment anymore for My View.
Right, so why would they need your social? Interesting, unless they want to pay you. And so it feels like you should explore that. I feel like Kelly or the Universal Michelle's could help you either way with that. So stay with us and let us, if you have questions, we're all happy to walk with you.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So on that note, this is Kelly. Grabbing some, and back on as your general admin. So if you do have submissions, you don't have to send us your social security number, but please consider sending in your writing. You can do that at our Insights Book Club email that'll be sent in. And we're going to try to open up a Google Drive possibly. Some of you had suggested that we either collect the information a little bit more so it's not as piecemeal and hard to follow in the emails. But we'll talk, the Michelle's and I will come up with a plan to make that a little bit easier for everyone to come in. If you do have a deadline, or we can start signing people up in advance, that might also help for next week, so we know who would like to read. So when you're submitting, maybe you want to put in a little note in the bottom that says, I would like to read for next week, but we can come up with a plan for that together as we go forward. In the meantime, I want to say thank you, and if everyone could give a round of applause to our extraordinary teachers for today. Thank you so much for leading this incredible group. And for everyone who shared today, your stories were profound and beautiful and well written. And it is an honor to be here with you, even from a distance. So thank you so much. And back over to the Michelles for the good night and goodbyes.
Okay, thanks, Cal. Have fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, next week we're going to do intuitive writing and my experience with all of that. And so it'll be fun and easy, and we'll hear some more wonderful writing. And we thank you all for the honor of your presence. So especially Mike, who drove all the way
Yeah.
from Massachusetts to be in the library with us today.
Thinking about the ride back.
I'm
Oh.
sorry. Take a donut. All right, everyone.
Thank
Peace,
you.
love, and have a great week. We'll see you next Saturday. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you.